Imagine two people standing in the same room. One is wearing an expensive suit. He drives a luxury car. He lives in a huge house. From the outside, he looks successful. The other person, nobody notices him. Simple clothes, ordinary lifestyle. No expensive car, no glamorous social media posts. But behind the scenes, he has quietly built a fortune. Now ask yourself, who is actually wealthy? This is where money becomes interesting. Because money is not only about mathematics. It is not only about income. It is not only about investing. And it is definitely not only about being intelligent. Money is deeply connected to human behavior. Our emotions, our ego, our fears, our childhood, our experiences, and our definition of success. Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money explores one powerful idea. Doing well with money has less to do with how much you know, and more to do with how you behave. And today, we are going to explore the most important lessons from this book. Through real stories, simple examples, and practical ideas that you can actually use in your own life. So, take a deep breath, slow down, and let's begin. Part 1. The reality about money. We are often taught that becoming wealthy is a mathematical problem. Earn more, spend less, invest the difference, repeat. And yes, those things matter. But there is another question that matters even more. Can you control yourself while doing them? Because imagine two people earning the same salary. Person A earns $5,000 every month. Person B also earns $5,000. Person A spends $4,900. Person B spends $3,500. At the end of the month, Person A has almost nothing left. Person B has $1,500 available for saving and investing. Same income, different behavior, and over 10, 20, or 30 years, that small difference can become enormous. This is why money is not simply about income. It is about decisions, and decisions are influenced by psychology. Part 2. The Story of Ronald Read. One of the most powerful stories associated with the psychology of money is the story of Ronald Read. Ronald Read was not a famous investor. He wasn't a Wall Street celebrity. He wasn't a billionaire entrepreneur. He worked ordinary jobs during his lifetime, including as a gas station attendant and janitor. He lived a relatively modest life. He repaired his clothes. He drove an old car. He didn't live like someone who had become extraordinarily wealthy. And then, he died in 2014. People who knew him were shocked to discover something. Ronald Read had accumulated a fortune worth millions of dollars. Think about that. A man who appeared ordinary had quietly built substantial wealth. How? Not through some magical investment secret. Not by predicting every market crash. Not by becoming famous. He saved consistently, invested, and allowed his money to compound for decades. This story teaches us something incredibly important. Wealth is often invisible. The expensive car is visible. The designer clothes are visible. The giant house is visible. But savings, investments, financial security, freedom from debt, those things are often invisible, and that creates a dangerous trap. We sometimes spend money to look wealthy, while sacrificing the very thing that could actually make us wealthy. Part 3. Wealth vs. richness. This distinction is one of the most important ideas in personal finance. Being rich means having money available to spend. Being wealthy means having money that you don't need to spend. A person earning $20,000 a month but spending $21,000 may look rich, but financially, they are fragile. Another person earning $5,000 and spending $3,500 may look ordinary, but they are building financial strength. Because wealth is what you don't see. It's the money sitting quietly in your bank account. It's the investments you don't sell. It's the emergency fund you hope you never need. It's the debt you chose not to take. It's the financial freedom that gives you choices. So the next time you see someone driving an expensive car, Don't automatically think that person is wealthy. You don't know. Maybe they paid cash. Maybe they financed it. Maybe they are deeply in debt. Maybe they can easily afford it. Maybe they can't. You simply don't know. And that's the point. You cannot measure someone's wealth by looking at what they spend. Part 4. Money is personal. Here's another powerful lesson. Everyone has a different relationship with money. Why? Because everyone's experience is different. Imagine two children growing up in different families. One grows up during a period of economic prosperity. His parents have stable jobs. Money is always available. The other grows up during a recession. His family struggles. Bills are difficult. Sometimes there isn't enough money. These two children can grow into adults and develop completely different attitudes toward money. The first might become comfortable taking financial risks. The second might become extremely conservative. Neither person is necessarily irrational. They are simply responding to different experiences. This is why you should be careful when judging someone else's financial decisions. You are looking at their decision, but you haven't lived their life. You haven't experienced their childhood. You haven't seen their fears. You haven't experienced their failures. You haven't felt their financial pain. Money is personal, and understanding that can make you a better financial decision maker. Part 5. The power of compounding. Now let's talk about one of the most powerful forces in finance. Compounding. Compounding means your money earns returns, and then those returns begin earning returns of their own. At first, the growth looks boring, very boring, but over long periods, the results can become extraordinary. Think about planting a tree. For the first few years, you don't see much. You water it, you protect it, you wait. Then, eventually, the tree becomes large. The mistake people make is digging up the seed every few months to see whether it is growing. Investing can be similar. People constantly ask, is the market going up? Is this stock going up? Should I sell? Should I buy something else? But sometimes, the biggest advantage you can have is simply time. Warren Buffett is an obvious example of the power of time. His enormous wealth was not created simply because he earned good returns. A huge part of the story is that he remained invested for an extraordinarily long period. That's the lesson. Time can be more powerful than intensity. You don't necessarily need to become the smartest investor in the world. You need to give your investments enough time to work. Part 6. The most important word. ENOUGH. Now imagine you are climbing a mountain. You reach a beautiful viewpoint. You could stop, but then you see another mountain. So you continue. You reach the next peak, then another, and another. At what point is it enough? This is one of the most dangerous questions in finance. Because if you never define enough, you can always want more. More money, more status, more success, more luxury, more returns. And sometimes, the pursuit of more can destroy what you already have. There are people who have enormous wealth, but continue taking enormous risks because they want even more. The lesson is simple. Know what is enough for you. Enough doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means understanding your personal finish line. Maybe your goal is financial independence. Maybe it's owning a home. Maybe it's having enough money to spend more time with your family. Maybe it's being able to leave a job you hate. Maybe it's simply sleeping peacefully at night without worrying about bills. Your enough is personal. Define it, because if you don't, someone else will define it for you. Advertising will, social media will, your neighbors will, your friends will, and the comparison never ends. Part 7. The danger of comparison. Let's imagine you buy a new car. You feel great. For 2 days, maybe 2 weeks, you feel successful. Then your neighbor buys a better car. Suddenly, your car doesn't feel as impressive. You didn't lose anything. Your car is still the same. Your income is still the same. Your life is still the same, but your perception changed. Why? Because humans compare, and social media makes this even stronger. You see someone else's vacation, their house, their business, their watch, their lifestyle, but you don't see their debt. You don't see their stress. You don't see their private failures. You don't see their sacrifices. You see the highlight reel. Then you compare it with your behind-the-scenes life. That's an unfair comparison. So remember, don't spend money trying to impress people who aren't paying your bills. Part 8. Leave room for error. Here's one of the most practical lessons from the book. Plan for things to go wrong, because they will. Markets will fall. Jobs can disappear. Unexpected expenses will arrive. Businesses can fail. Plans can change. Life can surprise you. A financial plan that only works when everything goes perfectly is not a strong financial plan. You need a margin of safety. That could mean an emergency fund, reasonable debt, diversified investments, insurance where appropriate, and not putting every dollar into one risky opportunity. Think about it this way. If your financial plan requires perfection, one mistake can destroy everything. But if your plan has room for mistakes, you can survive. And survival is incredibly important in investing, because if you stay in the game long enough, time and compounding can work in your favor. Part 9. Why survival matters more than perfection. Imagine two investors. Investor 1 earns spectacular returns, but eventually takes one enormous risk and loses almost everything. Investor 2 earns average returns, but remains invested for decades. Who wins? Over a long period, the second investor may have a huge advantage, because investment success is not about winning every year. It's about staying alive financially. You don't need every decision to be perfect. You need enough good decisions, and you need to avoid catastrophic mistakes. This is a powerful change in thinking. Instead of asking, how can I make the maximum amount of money? Ask, how can I make sure I can keep going? That's a much better question. Part 10. The role of luck and risk. We like simple stories. Someone becomes successful, and we say, they worked hard. Someone fails, and we say, they made bad decisions. Sometimes that's true, but reality is more complicated. Luck matters. Risk matters. Timing matters. Circumstances matter. Consider two entrepreneurs. Both work extremely hard. Both are intelligent. One starts a company during a booming economic period. The other starts during a severe recession. Their outcomes may be very different. Does that mean the successful person didn't work hard? No. Does it mean the unsuccessful person was lazy? Not necessarily. The world contains randomness, and understanding that should make us both more humble and more patient. When you succeed, don't assume you are invincible. When you fail, don't assume you are incapable. Sometimes outcomes contain an element of luck. Part 11. Practical lesson. Create your own money rules. Now let's turn these ideas into action, because knowledge without action changes nothing. Here are some practical principles you can start applying. Rule 1. Save before you spend. Don't wait until the end of the month to see what remains, because often, nothing remains. Instead, make saving part of your system. Income comes in, savings happen, then you spend what is left. Rule to avoid lifestyle inflation. When your income increases, you don't have to increase your lifestyle by the same amount. If your salary increases by $500, you don't necessarily need a $500 increase in monthly expenses. Let part of that increase become future freedom. Rule 3. Build an emergency fund. Life is unpredictable. An emergency fund gives you breathing room. It can help you handle unexpected expenses without immediately turning to expensive debt. The exact amount depends on your situation, but the principle is simple. Give yourself financial space. Rule 4. Invest for the long term. Don't constantly change your strategy because of short-term market noise. Markets will rise. Markets will fall. Your emotions will react. But a long-term plan can help you avoid making emotional decisions. Rule 5. Define your enough. Write it down. Ask yourself, how much money do I actually need for the life I want? Not the life your neighbor wants. Not the life Instagram shows you. Not the life advertisements sell you. Your life. Part 12. A simple money test. Let's do a quick mental exercise. Imagine tomorrow, you suddenly become financially secure. You don't need to impress anyone. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to work only for money. What would you do differently? Would you spend more time with your family? Would you travel? Would you start a business? Would you learn something new? Would you exercise? Would you help someone? Would you simply sleep better? Your answer reveals something important. Money is not ultimately about money. Money is about what money allows you to do. The greatest value of wealth may not be a bigger house. It may be control over your time, the ability to say no, the ability to walk away from a bad situation, the ability to choose, and perhaps most importantly, the ability to live without constantly worrying about money. Part 13, the final story. Let's return to Ronald Read. When people discovered his wealth after his death, they didn't discover a glamorous lifestyle. They discovered something much more powerful: consistency. He didn't need to look rich. He didn't need applause. He didn't need strangers to know how much money he had. He simply allowed time, saving, investing, and patience to do that work. And maybe that's one of the greatest lessons of all. Financial success can be quiet. It can look boring. It can look ordinary. It can look like saying no to something you could afford. It can look like investing instead of spending. It can look like staying calm when everyone else is panicking. It can look like waiting, and waiting is difficult. Because we live in a world that constantly tells us, buy now, upgrade now, become successful now, get rich quickly. But wealth often works differently. Wealth is frequently built slowly, quietly, and patiently. Part 14. The biggest lesson. So, what is the biggest lesson from the psychology of money? It is not find the perfect stock. It is not predict the next market crash. It is not become obsessed with financial news. And it is not make as much money as possible. The deeper lesson is this: your financial life is a reflection of your behavior. You can know everything about investing and still make terrible decisions because of fear or greed. You can earn a huge income and still be financially insecure. You can earn an ordinary income and build substantial wealth through discipline and time. So work on your behavior. Control your spending. Save consistently. Invest patiently. Avoid catastrophic risks. Leave room for mistakes. Ignore unnecessary comparison. And most importantly, remember that money is a tool. It is not the final destination. One day, you will look back at your life, and you probably won't remember every expensive thing you bought. You won't remember every stock price. You won't remember every financial headline. You may not even remember how much money you had in a particular year. But you may remember whether you had freedom, whether you had choices, whether you had time with the people you loved, whether you lived according to your own values, or spent your life trying to impress everyone else. So, don't ask only, how can I make more money? Ask, how can I build a life where money gives me freedom instead of controlling me? Don't chase wealth just to look wealthy. Build wealth so you can live differently. Save not because saving is exciting, but because future you may need that freedom. Invest not because you want to become rich overnight, but because patience can give your money time to grow. And don't measure your success by what other people can see, because the most valuable form of wealth may be completely invisible. The ability to sleep peacefully, the ability to say no, the ability to choose your work, the ability to help your family, the ability to survive a difficult year, the ability to walk away from something that isn't right for you. That is wealth. And perhaps the most important financial lesson is also the simplest. You don't need to be brilliant with money. You need to be patient. You need to be disciplined. You need to understand yourself. And you need to stay in the game. Because in the end, money is not just a numbers game. It is a behavior game. And when you learn to control your behavior, you don't just change the way you handle money. You change the way you live. This is the psychology of money. And your financial future begins with the decisions you make today.